Hello and welcome to lesson 7 in the book that we are studying here, Prosperity by Charles Fillmore. I'm Reverend Wally White with Unity in Greensboro, and let me let my co-minister here, Reverend Todd, introduce himself.
Hello, friends. I am Reverend Todd Humphrey with Crystal Coast Unity in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And as Wally said, we're getting ready to dive in on chapter 7 of Charles Fillmore's classic book, Prosperity. We do want to remind you that this is interactive. And while you are not with us on camera, we do want you to interact with us. And if you have questions or comments or something that comes up really sparks your interest, make sure you leave a comment for us so we can interact. But let's get started. Excuse me, friends. This again is chapter 7 of Prosperity, lesson 7. God has provided prosperity for every home. The home is the heart of the nation. The heart is the love center. Love is the world's greatest attractive power. The electromagnetic that lifts the ingots of steel must first be charged with the electric current, for without the current, it is powerless. So the heart of man, or the home that is the heart of the nation, must be aglow in God's love. Then it becomes a magnet, drawing all good from every direction. God has amply provided for every home, but the provision is in universal substance, which responds only to law. Through the application of the law, the substance is drawn to us and begins to work for us. It is the law of love that we have whatsoever we desire. As a father gives his children gifts, so the Lord gives to us because of love. When we desire aright, we put our thoughts into the supermind realm. We contact God mind, and from it draw the invisible substance that is manifest in temporal things. The substance thus becomes a part of our mind, and through it, of our affairs. We draw spiritual substance to ourselves just as the magnet draws the iron. When we think about the love of God drawing to us the substance necessary for support and supply, that substance begins to accumulate all around us. And as we abide in the consciousness of it, it begins to manifest itself in all our affairs. Perfect love casteth out fear. Fear is a great breeder of poverty, for it breaks down positive thoughts. I'm going to read that sentence one more time because I can't hear it enough.
Right.
Fear is a great breeder of poverty, for it breaks down positive thoughts. Negative thoughts bring negative conditions in their train. The first thing to do in making a demonstration of prosperity in the home is to discard all negative thoughts and words. Build up a positive thought atmosphere in the home, an atmosphere that is free from fear and filled with love. Do not allow any words of poverty or lack to limit the attractive power of love in the home. Select carefully only those words that charge the home atmosphere with the idea of plenty. For like attracts like in the unseen as well as in the seen. Never make an assertion in the home, no matter how true it may look on the surface, that you would not want to see persist in the home. By talking poverty and lack, you are making a comfortable place for these unwelcome guests by your fireside, and they will want to stay. Rather, fill the home with thoughts and words of plenty, of love, and of God's substance. And then the unwelcome guests will soon leave you.
Can we stop and talk about that for a second?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just think it's such a strong, important message. I know from like my own experiences, and something I had to work on unlearning is you're not helping anybody by sitting down and having long dissertation conversations about what's going wrong. If somebody's sick, for instance, I made sure when we got a prayer list going in the last couple of years, not to list what someone's health challenge was or what they were asking for prayer about, because it's within our nature to want to get that story. Look, my job for this, well, many years ago before this, I worked in production offices of soap operas, and like those thrive on talking about what's going wrong. But when we're in our own homes, if we really want to help somebody, we've got to stay in that affirmative place of you are whole, perfect, and complete, and let go of what may be the really interesting story of all the things that are going wrong, but accepting that like this is saying that is its own magnet, and that it's just so important not to get it caught up in that story, that we can be compassionate about what somebody's going through without sharing in the negative experience of it.
I absolutely. I am reminded of one of my mentors who would often say, whenever you think of someone in an impoverished state, never leave them there. Right? But because the truth is if we think lack thoughts about anyone else, right, then at the level of oneness, the truth of who we are, we're making it okay for scarcity to be in our lives.
Right.
And so we want to lift everyone up to the truth of their wholeness, being completely and totally supported with all the supply, all needs are met. There is no lack in the universe. That's a fundamental principle of this theology, is that there is enough. We must be willing to receive it. And so we have to do everything we can to vibrate at the resonance of plenty, of abundance, of our prosperity.
I had a conversation, and I'd love your input on this, Todd, and anybody else listening to add in their part. But there was a conversation I had this past week with some folks around tithing and around giving in general, not even just tithing, in that you got to give without conditions, really. If you can't give without conditions, then hold on to it till you're ready to, because and the conversation was like, well, if I give to somebody homeless, I want to make sure that they're going to use it on food or on a blanket it's like, after you give it to them, what they use it on is none of your business, unless you held on to it and didn't actually give it to them. And man, did I get a challenge on that. And I mean, a challenge for people that are also in this movement, but you get caught up in your human experience life and you're like, well, wait, I never heard that before. And I'm like, well, are you giving it or not? Because if you're truly giving it, once you've released it, you've let it go. And I bring that up here in saying, because if you've not fully let it go and you're giving conditions because you're saying, well, because what I don't want them to use it for is a bottle of liquor or the this or the that, right? And it's like, then that's getting painted into your gift. And now I don't even want that gift if it's heading my way, because there's negativity attached to it. It's just, I think, a real challenge in looking at like what that giving is. And then that comes back to us. And what are we willing to give ourselves? Are we giving it because this is what we think will be a true blessing to us? Or are we giving it and calling upon it for ourselves because we don't want the other side of it? Because if we're still stuck if I'm claiming financial prosperity because I don't want to be broke, I got to let go of that broke, or I'm carrying that into whatever else I'm doing. Like, that was a really hard lesson for me to learn.
Absolutely. My thought is that anytime that we are giving money because we see a lack in them, right? We see a lack that they don't have a place to live. They don't have clean clothes. They don't have a car, whatever. Whenever we're giving out of an idea that there is lack in the world and there is a lack in their life, then we are not giving, right? We're trying to fix a problem that we have created. Now, there are people that are perfectly happy living their lives the way they do, right? And while I believe that everybody should have a home and everyone should have plenty of food to eat, some people don't want to have the four walls and a roof. And so if I am giving money and tying strings to how it must be spent, right, then that's not really a gift, right? That is, I am problem solving versus giving out of my abundance. And if I give money because I'm trying to solve a problem, then I am resonating with the problem, and I'm going to see more of the problem in my experience of life, right? So if I'm giving money because I see this person is not employed and possibly homeless because they're standing on the corner with a sign, and I think I'm fixing the problem, I'm going to start seeing more and more people, right, in my experience of life. I might even, end up, having my own issues with paying my bills, keeping my car running, being able to hold on to my apartment, right? Because we are actually feeding that problem by identifying it in someone else. That means it's somewhere in our consciousness to be healed.
And to be clear to everybody, this is not to say, so then don't give to somebody that's on the street with the sign. It's saying take that extra beat, take that one extra moment to see it. There's the high likelihood that in seeing it, you're going to see someone in need, and then allow yourself to go to the step beyond that of, I see a calling for me to be a blessing, not to be a fixer, to be a blessing. I want to be a blessing. And now you're ready to give. But if you stop at, well, there's this. Look, my mentor said, as her example in this, that if you say, well, I don't want to give money to somebody on the street because they're just going to use it for a bottle of liquor. And she said, if I had to sleep on the street, I'd need more than one bottle of liquor. So please give me the money so I can get some, And that's not to say that we support any of those sorts of things. If you can help someone get to a shelter or do all those things, by all means, offer it. But as Todd was saying, understand that there are some people that are living a life that is different than that, a life that maybe is without the four walls, that the last place they want to go is the shelter. And while that may not be something I even understand why they wouldn't want that, it's not my business. That's what I'm clear on, is let me be a blessing without making other people's business my business.
Absolutely. We are called to bless and support one another. And when we judge them, if we judge that there's lack, then that gives us the point where we get to turn the other cheek, right? We get to judge with righteous judgment. We get to see them as the Christ of their being, and know that all supply and all source is unlimited. And so whatever I have that I can give to them, and do it with joy, knowing that this is coming through me, but not from me, and not to fix a problem, but to lift them up to the truth of who they are, then that's a gift.
Right.
That's a gift. Love the conversation.
Hey.
Y'all chime in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. If I didn't push somebody's button in that, and while they didn't push somebody's button in that, then maybe we're not doing this right. Someone else I know said that ministers are to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comforted. So we might push your buttons. Let us know. Let's see. We're on 103, right?
Yeah. Bottom paragraph.
Yeah. Well, look here. Do not say that money is scarce. The very statement will scare money away from you. Do not say that times are hard with you. The very words will tighten your purse strings until omnipotence itself cannot slip a dime into it. Begin now to talk plenty, think plenty, and give thanks for plenty. Enlist all the members of the home in the same work. Make it a game. It's lots of fun. And better than that, it actually works. Now I'm going to pause here, bookmark for 1 second, and then this is not a conversation, but this isn't just about money. This is about all things, right? We're it's we are on the tail end, or maybe in the middle of a COVID experience out of life. And I have been to so many retailers, to so many restaurants where I live, and people keep saying, nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. Well, you know what? That's exactly what your experience is going to be, because you are resonating at the frequency that you can't find people to work in your establishment. And by saying it over and over again, you are creating that thought. If you say money is scarce, it will be scarce. If you say employees will be scarce, it's going to be scarce. If you say, that anything is scarce, so mote it be. So, right? Stop doing that. I'm going to keep going.
Hard times are scarce. Hard times are, say that.
Hard times are scarce. Yeah, I love that. I want to make that a t-shirt, Wally.
Yeah.
You should do that. Hard times are scarce. Amen. That makes me want to get up and dance. Every home can be prosperous, and there should be no poverty-stricken homes, for they are caused only by inharmony, fear, negative thinking, and speaking. Every visible form of wealth can be traced to an invisible force, to an invisible source. Food comes from gain which was planted in the earth. But who sees or knows the quickening love that touches the seed and makes it bear 100-fold? An unseen force from an invisible source acts on the tiny seeds, and supply for the multitude springs forth. That is almost a tongue twister. An unseen force from an invisible source acts on the tiny seeds, and supply for the multitude springs forth. The physical substance that we name earth is a visible form of a superabundant mind substance, everywhere present, pervading all things and inspiring all things to action. When the grain or seed is put into the earth, the quickening thought of the universe causes the little grain, the little life germ, to lay hold of the spiritual stuff, the spiritual substance all about it, and what we call matter proves to be a form of mind. There is no matter, all is mind. Words are also seeds, and when dropped into the invisible spiritual substance, they grow and bring forth after their kind. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Farmers and gardeners choose their seed with the greatest care. They reject every defective seed they find, and in this way they make sure of the coming crop. To have prosperity in your home, you will have to exercise the same intelligent discriminations in the choice of your seed words. You should expect prosperity when you keep the prosperity law. You should expect prosperity when you keep the prosperity law. Therefore, be thankful for every blessing that you gain, and as deeply grateful for every demonstration as for an unexpected treasure dropped into your lap. This will keep your heart fresh. For true thanksgiving may be likened to rain falling upon the ready soil, refreshing it and increasing its productiveness. When Jesus had only a small supply, he gave thanks for the little he had. This increased that little into such an abundance that a multitude was satisfied with food, and much was left over. Blessing has not lost its power since the time of Jesus used it. Try it and you will prove its efficacy. The same power of multiplication is in it today. Praise and thanksgiving impart the quickening spiritual power that produces growth and increases in all things. You should never condemn anything in your home. If you want new articles of furniture or new clothes to take the place of those you now have, do not talk about your present things as old or shabby. Watch your words. See yourself clothed as befits a child of the king, and see your house furnished just as pleases your ideal. Thus, plant in the home atmosphere the seed of richness and abundance. It will all come to you. Use the patience, the wisdom, and the I can't say that word, Wally.
Assiduity.
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 That word.
That word. Use the patience and the wisdom that the farmer employs in planting and cultivating, and your crop will be sure. Your words of truth are energized and vitalized by the living spirit. Your mind is now open and receptive to the influx of divine ideas that will inspire you with the understanding of the potency of your own thoughts and words. You are prospered. Your home is a magnet of love, drawing to it all good from the unfailing and inexhaustible reservoir of supply. Your increase comes because of your righteous application of God's law in your home. The blessing of Jehovah, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow therewith. Jesus showed men how to live in rest and peace, a simple life, where the simplicity of his teachings is received and appreciated. The people change their manner of living, doing away with ostentation and getting down to the simplicity and beauty of the things that are worthwhile. Every summer, those who feel that they can plan to go away for a vacation, and many of them enjoy a small cabin in the woods where they can live a simple and natural life close to nature. This shows that they long to let go of the burdens of conventionality and rest in touch with the real of things. The soul wearies of the wear and tear of the artificial world, and now and then it must have a season of rest. Jesus invites, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest."
I'd love to stop and chat there for 1 second, because
Yes.
I think simplicity is a word that can be used outside of what we standardly think of it as. I think if you think of simplicity, in the way that he's saying it here, as just being true to you, as being honest, because I think Mr. Fillmore, his ideal vacation was to go off into the nowhere land of a cabin and live that life. That is a simplicity that would make me miserable. I would hate it, hate it, hate it. But so, I think if you're doing it, the question is, are you doing it because this is what makes you comfortable and happy? Maybe if you're saying yes, but there's still a question mark in there, then you're like, well, why does this make me happy? Is this happy because I grew up always thinking this is what you should want? Is this what I want because Aunt Sally always said this is the very best, and so I want the very best, and I'm going to judge it by Aunt Sally's decisions? Or is it, I love being in a cabin, or I love being in a nice cushy hotel bed with a beautiful view? Like, whatever your thing is, I love this for my own reasons that I feel the happiness and joy bubbling up in me. I just wanted to make sure in that part that it's not saying you're doing it wrong if you're not cutting out all the luxuries. I like luxuries. I'm never going to discourage people from having luxuries, but I will discourage you for having them for the sake of stature, or for the sake of show, or for the sake of Well, this is what I think I'm supposed to want. What do you, don't forget what you're supposed to. What do you want? Start there. There may be some supposed to's that will help get you to our most honest spiritual place. We just need to make sure we're not using the judgment of one of our other fellow man who maybe has their own askewed view because of another one of our fellow man, you know.
Yep. Good points. Good points. And don't ever confuse everything that you own in the material world as your experience of abundance. It's part of it, but the reason you have those things has to do with your thinking and feeling nature. And at any point, any of these things that we have here can be taken away and we can get them back because we know how to think. Bottom of 106. There is a great difference between the simple life and poverty. The two have been associated in the minds of some people, and this is the reason they shun the idea of the simple life. Even those who have come into some degree of spiritual understanding sometimes put out of mind all thought of a simple manner of living because they fear that others will think they are failing to demonstrate prosperity. In such cases, those who judge should remember to judge not according to appearances. And those who are judged should be satisfied with the praise of God rather than with the praise of man. All those who base their prosperity on possessions alone have a purely material prosperity, which, though it may seem great for a time, will vanish because it is founded on the changing of the external and has no root within the consciousness. There is a great similarity in the homes of nearly all people who have about the same sized incomes. Each one unconsciously follows suggestion and furnishes his home with the same sort of things as his neighbors. Here and there are exceptions. Someone is expressing his or her individuality, overcoming mass suggestions, and buying the kind of furniture he really wants or that is really comfortable and useful. This free, independent spirit has much in its favor in making a prosperity demonstration. The delusion that it is necessary to be just like other people or to have as much as other people have causes a spirit of anxiety that hinders the exercise of faith in demonstration. The simple life does not imply poverty, and it is not ascetic. It is as different from the austere as it is from the wanton luxury. It is the natural, free, childlike mode of living, and no one never really knows what true prosperity is until one comes into this simplicity and independence of spirit. The simple life is a state of consciousness. It is peace, contentment, and satisfaction in the joy of living and loving. And it is attained through thinking about God and worshiping God in spirit and in truth. I love that. I'm going to take a break and let you read for a few minutes, if you don't mind, sir.
I'll do it. All right. First full paragraph on 108, if anyone's following along. You want to learn how to demonstrate prosperity in your home by the righteous exercise of powers and faculties that God has given you. Realize in the very beginning that you do have these powers and faculties. You are in possession of everything necessary for the demonstration of prosperity and can undertake it with the utmost confidence and faith. You can draw on the omnipresent substance throughout all eternity, yet it will never grow less, for it consists of ideas. Through thinking, you take some of these ideas into your mind and they begin to become manifest in your affairs. Love is one of the ideas that provide a key to the infinite storehouse of abundance. It opens up generosity in us. It opens up generosity in others when we begin to love and bless them. It will also open a spirit of generosity in God. It certainly will and does. If you consciously love and bless God, you will soon find that things are coming your way. It will surprise you that just thinking about God will draw to you the things you want and expect and bring many other blessings that you had not even thought about. Thousands of persons have proved this law to their entire satisfaction, and we have many records that illustrate how people have demonstrated abundance in the very face of apparent lack, simply by thinking about the love of God and thanking Him for what they have. This law will demonstrate itself for you or for anyone who applies it faithfully, for love never faileth. I just want to stop right there for 1 second to be clear. This is not saying if you give grandpa attention, grandpa will give you a gift. If you give some old man on a cloud who's otherwise judging you favorable attention, you'll get favorable attention. This is about turning our attention away from the worldly experience, from the human experience, from the physical experience, and using our spiritual filter that allows all the other to flow. Because as we've said in all the lessons leading up to this, the true prosperity is about what's happening in our minds. And so this is about turning on a faculty that is God, not some separate person or entity or energy even. It's who we are, but we're not always using it. We have to choose to use it. And when we choose to use it, it flows. That's simply what this is saying.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Thank
Okay.
you.
Men in business and industries, people in business and industry have demonstrated great amounts of money through love. They did not love God, but the love of money attracted the money to them. It drew the substance right to them and enabled them to accumulate money, but merely as material, without the divine idea that assures permanence. We hear about men in high finance going through bankruptcy quite as often as we hear about men making great fortunes. When we develop a spiritual consciousness, we transfer this personal love to a higher and more stable plane, from the love of money and material things to the love of God, and thus conceived, it will attract to us all the resources of infinite mind forever and ever. Once we make a connection with the universal bank of God, and you have a permanent source of wealth. Jesus said that when we come to the altar to make an offering, we should have nothing in our heart against our brother. He said that before we can make contact with the love and power of God, we must first make peace with our brother. This means that we must cultivate a love for our fellows in order to set the attractive force of love into operation. All we need do is quicken our love for others by thinking about love and casting out our mind all hate and fear that would weaken the perfect working of that mighty magnet. As love attracts, hate dissipates. I'm going to say that one again. As love attracts, hate dissipates. Before you approach God's altar of plenty, go and make friends with your brother men. Make friends even with the money powers. Do not envy the rich. Never condemn those who have money merely because they have it and you do not. Do not question how they got their money and wonder whether or not they are honest. All that is none of your business. Your business is to get what belongs to you, and you do that by thinking about the omnipresent substance of God and how you can lay hold of it through love. Get in touch with God, riches in spirit. Lay hold of them by love, and you will have sufficient for every day. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. The eternal law of spirit goes on operating regardless of what you may think, say, or do. It is ordained that love will bring you prosperity, and you need not wonder whether it will or how it will. Be not therefore anxious, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? Do not worry. Worry is a thief and a robber, and it keeps your good from you. It breaks the drawing law of love, the law that says perfect love casteth out fear. Banish worry by quietly and confidently affirming the drawing power of divine love as the constantly active magnet that attracts your unfailing supply. A good affirmation to root worry is one like this: divine love bountifully supplies and increases substance to meet my every need. I'm going to say that again. Divine love bountifully supplies and increases substance to meet my every need. Nearly all books and articles that deal with success or prosperity stress the well-known virtues of honesty, industry, system and order, faithfulness, and hard work. These make an excellent foundation and can be developed. Anyone with determination and will can overcome habits of laziness, carelessness, and weakness. The use of will is very important in the demonstration of prosperity. If there is disorder or lack of system in your home, overcome it. Affirm, I will be orderly. I will be orderly. I will be systematic in all my work and affairs. I am systematic. I am orderly. I am efficient. And I'll tell you, if you're in the car and you think about this one as one that you're like, oh, I wish I had that written down so I could say it right now. Say what you remember, because that's the part that you link to the most anyway. I'd want to go straight to I am efficient. I am efficient. I am orderly. So say the part of it that grabs hold of you that you can remember at a stoplight. It takes the use of the will to be persistent, and we must be persistent in making demonstrations. Spasmodic efforts count for little, and many people give them up too easily. If things don't come out just right the first time they try, they say the law is wrong and make no further effort. Anything so much worth, let me say that again, anything so much worthwhile as prosperity in the home, and especially a permanent and unfailing supply that continues to meet the daily needs year after year, is worth any effort that we can make. Then be patient but persistent. Then be patient but persistent. Declare, I am not discouraged. I am persistent. I go forward. When success fails to crown our very first efforts, we become discouraged and quit. Then we try to console ourselves with the old thought that it is God's will for us to be poor. Poverty is not God's will, but man lays it to the charge of God to excuse his own feeling of inadequacy and defeat. God's will is health, happiness, and prosperity for every man. I'm going to read that. I might read that 10 times. I'm not. I'm just going to read it one more time. God's will is health, happiness, and prosperity for every human. And to have all that is good and beautiful in the home is to express God's will for us. God's will is not expressed in a hovel, nor in any home where discord, lack, and unhappiness are entertained. Even a human guest would not stay long in such a home. To have a prosperous home Prepare it as the abiding place of God, who gives prosperity to all his children and adds no sorrow therewith. Determine to know God's will and do it. Affirm, I am determined to achieve success through doing God's will. That sums up the whole law. God is more willing to give than we are to receive. What we need to do is to determine what is his will, what he is trying to give, and open ourselves to receive that bounty. We do that by willing to do his will. You can be and have anything that you will to be and to have. Will to be healthy, will to be happy, will to be prosperous. There are many persons who will be prosperous and who have made up their minds as they think very determinedly. But they have not overcome all doubts. And when their demonstration is delayed, as it is in such cases, the doubt increases until they lose faith altogether. What they need is more persistence and determination. The word determined is a good word, a strong, substantial word with power in it. Jesus said that his words were spirit and life and would never pass away. Emerson says that words are alive, and if you cut one, if you cut one, it will bleed. Use the word determined and emphasize it in your affirmations. If things do not seem to come fast enough, determine that you will be patient. If negative thoughts creep in, determine to be positive. If you feel worried about the results, determine to be optimistic. In response to every thought of lack or need, determine to be prosperous. The Lord has prosperity to give, and those who are determined go after their share. Jesus was quite positive and very determined in all his affirmations. He made big claims for God and demonstrated them. Without the slightest doubt that the money would be there, he told Peter to put his hand into the fish's mouth and take out the wanted money. His prayers were made of one strong affirmation after another. The Lord's Prayer is a series of determined affirmations. We claim the will of God is for us to be rich, prosperous, and successful. Make up your mind that such is God's will for you and your home, and you will make your demonstration. I'd love to stop and talk about that for a second, because really being determined is also, that's kind of the legs in a way, or certainly one of the legs of faith that allows it to stand. Like faith is being determined to that good is yours before you have proof of it, right? And so it's the same, like our will is used. But I will say that, like, hearing these words and having known as a new thought student, that if you start throwing that determination, but you're trying to, like, when people, something didn't go their way and they say, well, I guess it's just not God's will, and they start blaming God for the bad stuff. In that same way, if you're using your human will and you're trying to call it a God determination, you just want to, like, one way that'll help clean that up that I've found, and Todd, tell me what you think, and anybody else, please write in what you think too, is one way that will help on that is, because you want to have a picture of what you want. You want to know what you want, but you also don't want to limit God. So if you say, I want this or better, there's a building I drive past in Greensboro all the time that I think would make an incredible church for Unity in Greensboro. And I drive by and I'm like, hey, church, or better, I'll take something better, but or better. That's just a way of acknowledging that there is good that maybe I don't have my eye on yet. So I'm including that. But you do want to make sure when determination is really important, as Charles wrote here, but you want to make sure that you're not doing it and calling something a God thing when you're really using your ego mind in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what I want to input is, that when we don't have the determination and we come back and we go, oh, well, this must not be God's will, right? God doesn't have a will to do anything but to give you the kingdom. And so if there is an obstacle, the obstacle is in my consciousness, right? The obstacle is in your consciousness. If you're not receiving the good you desire, then it's something within us that can be, that, we get to root it out. We get to find it, get one of those little weed digging tools and find all the little erroneous thoughts that have taken root someplace in consciousness, because it's impacting our willingness to receive the good we desire. And there are a thousand different thoughts that could show up that would get in the way, but it's our responsibility, right? So that's one of the big things about New Thought faith is you really have to be willing to take responsibility for your experience of life. We don't want to get into metaphysical malpractice, but is there, if you haven't received the good that you desire, then, take that into prayer time and see, is there something that I'm holding on to? Is there some forgiveness work I can do? Is, what's in the way of me claiming this thing that I desire? So I feel like I'm preaching.
Yeah, and what comes to mind to me too is like, this is not the let's manifest Wally a husband class, but I'm gonna use it as an example again here. One of the questions, couple of things that I would look at in that, where determination would come in play of being something that's being helpful or being something that's getting in the way. One would be if I've set my eyes on one specific man, right? And I'm like, that one's my husband. Except the problem with that is he's somebody else's husband, or he's not attracted to me. He's not, whatever the thing is, he's not available for whatever reason. Like if I can't use my determination and say it's him or nothing. That's where it's got to be him or better for me. Like, because they're with humans especially, and that's why I'm using this as an example. Use this in whatever your thing is, be it a house, be it a whatever, a happier day. That but in this example, there are always other facets to other people in this example that I don't know all of them. So to say it's him or nothing would put me in not the best place of really manifesting. And so that's like, I want the qualities of this person. Right now, I think I would love it if it were that person, but the qualities that I'm imagining this person to have, that is what I'm working on manifesting. And then the second question to that is, I live in a house on my own, of which I have filled up every closet and every storage space available. So the question is, and I'll tell you in my answer, with manifesting a husband, I'd assume that it manifests also in a larger house, to spread out, because I've used this much square footage on my own. But if I wanted somebody to come in here, the question is, well, do you have a drawer cleared for them to put some stuff? Have you made room in a closet? Are you determined enough to go ahead and start preparing for the good? If it's money that you're looking for, what do you want the money for? Are you preparing? Are you learning some more about that sort of thing? Well, I've always wanted to live in this other city, or I've always wanted to live in this other neighborhood in the city that I'm in. Well, are you preparing by learning stuff about that neighborhood? Where's the grocery store? Use some of your fun time to drive around and look in that neighborhood, or to be prepared to be a part of that community. What organizations do you think you might want to get involved in? Ask those questions, use determination like that, but don't say it's that one house or it's nothing, because that one house may have termites that have eaten up the whole wall on the inside and you don't know it, right? So you don't want to say that house or nothing. You want to say that house or better. I want the qualities that I see in that house. That's just all I wanted to say about that. Determination, I just want to say this again and again. Determination is great, but it can be a hindrance if it's misused. That's the main point I wanted to use.
I absolutely. And for anyone that wants to read more about that, go and visit the 12 Powers of Man and read the chapter on will. It's the misuse of will. That is our determining power. You know, what are we going to focus on? And we are either willing or we are willful. And when we're willful, we're deciding it has to look this way. And, you know, let me know how that goes for you.
All right, I'm going to get back to reading here. The first full paragraph, the second half of the page on page 113.
Got it.
In the Old Testament, in the 4th chapter of 2 Kings, there is a fine prosperity lesson for any home. The widow represents one who has lost his consciousness of God's supply and support. That divine idea of God as all abundance is our true support. The 2 children of this home represent the thoughts of debt, what the family owes, and what someone owes the family. The prophet is divine understanding. The house is the body consciousness. The pot of oil is faith in spiritual substance. The neighbors are outside thoughts, and their empty vessels are thoughts of lack. To go in the shut door and shut the door, as the widow was told to do, is to enter the inner consciousness and shut out the thoughts of lack. This is followed by strong words of affirmation, pouring the substance into all the places that seem to be empty or to lack until all are full. In conclusion, it is affirmed that every obligation is met, every debt is paid, and there is so much left over that there are no vessels left to hold it. This compares with the promise of God, I will open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that shall not be room enough to receive it. Heaven represents the mind. All this is done in the mind, and you can do it. Carry each step forward in your imagination exactly as if it were occurring in the without. Form your prosperity demonstration in your mind, then hold to it the divine law of fulfillment. And having done all, stand. You may not be able to fill all the vessels with oil on your first attempt, but as you practice the method day by day, your faith will increase and your results will be in proportion to your increasing faith. Work at the problem until you prove it. I'd say one of the ways of working at the problem is stop calling it a problem as quickly as possible. That's not written here. I just needed to add that immediately. Apply the principle and the solution is sure. If it does not come at once, check over your methods carefully and see within your work has not been true. Do not allow one empty thought to exist in your mind, but fill every nook and corner of it with the word plenty, plenty, plenty. If your purse seems empty, deny the lack and say, you are filled even now with the bounty of God, my Father, who supplies all my wants. If your rooms are empty, deny the appearance and determine that prosperity is manifest in every part of every room. Never think of yourself as poor or needy. Do not talk about hard times or the necessity for strict economy. Even the walls have ears, and unfortunately memories too. Do not think how little you have, but how much you have. Turn the telescope to your imagination around and look through the other end. Revile not the king, no, not in thy thought, and revile not the rich, in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the heavens shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the wicked, not standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of Jehovah, and on his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the streams of water, that bringeth forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also doth not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Through wisdom is a house built, and by understanding it is established. And by knowledge are the chambers filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Jehovah will open unto thee his good treasure, and Almighty will be thy treasure and precious silver unto thee. Jehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. Trust in Jehovah and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Jehovah will give grace and glory. No good thing will be withheld from them that walk uprightly, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and that I may fill their treasures. If ye be willing and obedient, ye shall eat the good of the land. Lots of quotes there at the end that came through.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite, Jehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd. 23rd Psalm. In my studies, it finally resonated with me, because I grew up reciting that at every time my father's family got together. I shall not want. I shall not want. I thought that was telling me I shouldn't desire stuff. Right? That's a common misconception of that piece of scripture. I shall not want. I shall not want is a denial. The Lord is my shepherd. There is no lack, and I'm going to receive all the good that I can claim. I just knocked my glass over. Luckily, it was empty. So I shall not want, right? Reclaim that. That is a wonderful denial anytime lack and limitation shows up. I shall not want. There is an unlimited supply of absolute good and unconditional love available to us right now. Right now.
And it all starts here. Like, will we all have a moment of want? Probably every day in some way or another. I want this, I want that. Either it's something that's right there in the other room you can go get, or it's something that you're like, okay, well, let me get to work on that right here. Let me start thinking about that in different ways. And let me accept the truth of it instead of imagining, well, it would be nice if, well, I know it's not going to happen, but like you really own it and believe it before you see it and use the faith in that way. I don't know exactly where in that last bit of reading before the quotes came up, I had this memory pop up of my nephew who's now 23 and married and has a kid. I remember when he was still in preschool and he punched a kid in the nose. Now, I'm not encouraging violence in any way, but the lesson that came from, in fact, I would work on, I'm the uncle, but I would still punish him in some way or another when violence came up. Not punish, but anyway. I was talking about him in front of him as though he weren't there, as we adults tend to do with really young and really old people, right? And the kid, I don't remember what it was. The kid was picking on him in some sort or another. The kid was much bigger than my nephew. In fact, at that point, my nephew was one of the smaller kids in his class. And I said to someone, I said, he's just walking around as though he's the biggest person in the room. And he was in the back seat of the car when I said it. And he said, I am the biggest person in the room. Now, physically, he absolutely was not. But mentally, he was, and he took charge as though he was in that moment. Again, this is not in any way of a saying, yay, violence, right? But it is about saying, name it and claim it and live it, even if you don't have physical proof of it.
Right.
That came out of that thing. And that lesson is what I think this chapter is about, of name it and claim it, and then set about your will to be determined that it is going to come true. That or better is the part that I would add to that.
Yep. Great discussion as always, my friend.
Don't you love, I ended our discussion on this chapter of two kids fighting in preschool. But it's not about the fight. It's about the mindset.
It is about the mindset.
Yeah. All right. We love and bless you all. We'll be back next week with lesson 8. Please let us know. We've asked several questions here, so we want to hear your answers. We really want the participation and the conversation with you all in this. So thanks for being a part of it. And I will be determined that the discussions that are coming forth are going to be excited, and I'm going to go ahead and name it and claim it now.
And so it is.
Till next week.
Be well, friends.